Hi guys. So today I have written another poem. This time it's a long poem, and I'd like to break it down and explain more about the poem to you. But this time we'll do that once I've actually read the poem to you. This is obviously another episode in the series of poems that we are currently doing. This is the second one. So if you haven't heard the first one, it's available now online on our social media platforms. That one was called You and I, The Sunshine. This one here was a part of a program called Faith, Race and Hate that we were working on. And I've called this one I Could Never Hate. First of all, we are one human race, one planet, we live on the same place. Different states, but we make the same mistakes. Different food in our plates, but we all say grace. The spice of Jamaica, the aroma of Asia, the intelligence of India, the waves of Australia. Without individuality comes such a boring normality. The quality of charity gives me faith in humanity. We need the heat of Haiti and the cooling of Quebec. A world full of flavor I am to explore yet. I love the cuisine of all cultures on my plate. I love the taxis in Texas as I tour the states. I love the experience of both night and day. I love the language of love. We feel emotions the same way. In my heart, you all have a place to stay. I could never hate. Thank you. So that's my piece based around the topic and subject and our project of faith, race, and hate, titled I Could Never Hate. I wrote that obviously based on my personal stand on faith, race, and hate, being that I could literally never hate on anyone, no matter their background, no matter their life experiences, what they look like, their religions and things that they're into, and things like that. Obviously, this one is much longer than the one I wrote in our last poem, a lot longer than You and I, The Sunshine. I just wanted to add a little bit more depth to my writing, and also it allows you, the longer a piece is, it allows you to express your feelings more and almost create a more of a story. I feel like this piece, I wrote it in more of a story kind of format. It almost takes you on a bit of a journey. I hope it does so as you hear it, or as I read it to myself, or if you was to read it back to yourself or to someone. And I think I just tried to write it in such a way that anyone listening to it or reading it feels though they can relate to it. Because I think that's where the world needs to be. I think we need to feel as though that we can relate to people more than we think, even if there are slight differences, there are also similarities. So when I mention things such as the spice of Jamaica, the aroma of Asia, the intelligence of India, the waves of Australia, straight away you'll notice that I've mentioned 4 different countries or continents. So, it's showing diversity. It's not aimed at one specific type of audience, it's aimed at several. So it sort of brings us closer together. And there are positive things that I've mentioned as well, because one thing I do hate is when it comes to discussing culture and cultural differences and things like that, it's always a negative things, a conversation that comes from it. Whereas this poem, I hope it's really, really positive and can make us all feel much more nice than we do. The other lines where I said, without individuality comes such a boring normality. If we was all the same, it would be so, so boring, honestly. Can you imagine a world where everybody looks like you, everybody talks like you, walks like you, ran like you? It would just be there's nothing fancy about it. And I think I love how there's so many differences on this planet because it almost adds a bit of excitement. I would actually, as much as I love myself and my culture, I would much prefer a world full of different types of people and different activities and traditional dances and festivities, etc., other than just the ones that are more closer to my home. Um, And yeah, so as I say, without individuality comes such a boring normality. So life's much more fun. You know, it's like a box of chocolates, a box of assortment chocolates, and they're all different flavors. Instead of just one box full of just the same. It's just same old. I then said that the quality of charity gives me faith in humanity. So again, the world has come together and gives a lot of money towards charities in most countries of the world. And I've noticed in England, most of the charities that advertise the most and that we give the most to seem to be charities that are actually based in other countries that to help other countries. So I think that's a wicked thing, and it gives me a sense of pride, because I'm of course also British. So yeah, I won't break it all down, because I'd like, when it comes to writing poems and reading them out, it's nice for the reader to have their own opinions of it, and because it's a work of art, you might take something from it different than what I intended you to, which is a good thing because art's a form of expression. So if you look at writing a poem yourself, it doesn't always have to be a specific, it doesn't have to be tiered specifically to like give a certain feeling or opinion to someone. You express yourself however you want to, and people will vibe off it either in the same way or a different way. Either way, your objection has still been achieved. So yeah, important lines in this, when I said we need the heat of Haiti and the cooling of Quebec, a world full of flavor I am to explore yet. So that, what I tried to get across there is the world needs balance. So obviously Haiti is a real hot country, and Quebec is really cold. I think the Quebec is in Canada. So really hot Haiti is, and Quebec's really cold. But you know, if everywhere was constantly really hot, we'd struggle to live, because the world just needs a balance of temperature, and those two completely different places add to the balance of the world, allowing us to live a lot longer. So when it comes to places and countries you've not explored yet, even though you have no direct relation to them, they're actually just as important to you as the countries that you live in. Meaning that the people from there should really appreciate other countries more also for helping to preserve our life for longer. Another part I will break down is actually in the first section of the poem. The poem is actually broken down into into 6 sections. The first section and the fifth section have the same amount of lines, which is 4. I didn't actually write this in any particular structure. I just changed the paragraphing when I got my previous point across. So the first section, which is first of all, we are one human race. I wanted that to be a real powerful introduction. That's what I was actually aiming for. I think when I say the words first of all, it immediately grabs your attention. It makes you want to listen out for the next thing that I say or the next thing that you are about to read. So I say, first of all, we are one human race. There's so many different races, but the first things first is that we're all human. It's as simple as that, really. There's nothing really more that I could explain. And if you're a human being, you shouldn't really be having no problems with no other human being. You know, we're all the same. One planet, we live on the same place. So of course we all live on planet Earth. So it's a home for all of us. You know, it's no more my home than it is your home. We're all on it here. We're all on it here to share together. So we all have to look after it and look after one another that lives on it. It just leads to a better life, realistically. And why would you not want that? Different states, but we make the same mistakes. So yeah, one thing I'm really big on is the fact that we all obviously live a life, but so many different types of journeys. I really, really doubt that there's 2 people on the planet that have lived the exact same journey of life thus far. I think that's highly unlikely. So even though we live in different places, we make the same type of mistakes. So we're all actually, even though we're all quite smart, we're growing to be a smart breed of animal. and obviously intelligent humans, but no one's perfect. So, you know, I think we should not beat each other up so much. Should we make a mistake, maybe if you made a mistake, don't beat yourself up so much, because we are human, and as smart and as intelligent as we are, and talented, we still make little mistakes. I think it's human to make mistakes. So don't beat yourself up or anybody else. I think life is all about learning. So you just learn from the mistakes you do make and just try not to make them again. And if it's a setback, you just try and bounce back harder. And if anything, we should show less hate to those that do make mistakes or don't achieve, and pick them back up or pick yourself back up. Show more love and proceed. And the last part is I love the cuisine of all cultures on my plate. I love food. I really love food. Like, you don't know no one that loves food more than me. And I love that there's so many different foods. I'd love to travel the world. One of my goals is to actually go on what I call a food tour. So when I'm rich, when I've made my millions off all of these poems, I'd love to go on a food tour and just taste foods of different cultures, foods that I've never had, food that I don't even know exists. Yeah, and just explore. I think it'll be wicked. I love the taxis in Texas as I tour the States. So from this, really, this just means exploring, sightseeing, you know, even just keeping an eye on trends. I think sightseeing, trend setting or spotting trends, and just different cultural ways of living and just things like that. I love the experience of both night and day. Again, relating back to the title, I Could Never Hate. We all experience night and day. This is just another way that I'm trying to show how we're all the same, and that we do go through the same night and day as everybody else does, and can experience some similar things at the same time. So if you do live in another side of the world, in a different continent, you know, you're still experiencing the sunlight from the same sun that I do. You're still experiencing the moonlight from the same moon that I do. We're not aliens to one another. We're all on the same place, experiencing the same night and day. I love the language of love. We feel emotions the same way. So love, anger, happiness, excitement. Again, these are just ways that I'm trying to show that we are similar, more similar than we think to one another. So that's me breaking it down. I'll finish with the last two lines, which is in the last segment of the poem, which is something that I really mean genuinely, whether I know you personally or I don't. I have a lot of love in my system, and I'd like to think I have zero hate in my system. So I'll say, in my heart, you all have a place to stay. I could never hate. So as I was saying, this is of course a much longer poem compared to the last poem, which was shorter. Again, go and check out the last one to check out how to write a short poem, or just to hear an example of a shorter poem. All you need to know in terms of making a longer poem, as this one is, I Could Never Hate, is just to think of a couple of different topics or ideas instead of just one big one. Because if you think of one big one, you might find it harder to actually write a longer poem based around the same thing without potentially repeating yourself or not knowing what you could add to it. So maybe you could just have like 3 or 4 similar topics that are only slightly different, and then just write, let's say for an example, I'd say maybe 4 lines in each section. I'll show you mine if you can see it. It starts off with 4 lines, then 2 lines, then 2 lines, then 3 lines, and then 4, and then 2 lines again. So mine is basically an introduction first, and then I go into the topic, which explains differences, reasons as to why I don't hate, and so on. So what you could do is think of, let's say you have 3 lines and then 4 lines. You can have a different idea for a topic for each of those segments. And then after you've written 3 lines for one part and then 3 or 4 for another part, you just merge them together. So it's almost like you've created 3 or 4 mini poems, and then you just merge it together as one. That's how I would have an attempt at trying to write a long poem to begin with. So what you can do is drop a comment. I really like you to drop a comment, or you can send in your own version as well, that you'll be able to see on our social media of you creating a long poem, and just have fun with it. No pressure whatsoever. It's just freedom. It's just expression. There's no right or wrong when it comes to creating art. It's just what you feel or what you're thinking at the time. So have a go. Tell us what you think about this one. I'd really appreciate your feedback. Again, check out the last one if you didn't. You and I, the Sunshine. This one's called I Could Never Hate. We shall see you next week for another one.